everyone, this is Steve Lynch, formerly of Autograph, now with my new project, Blue Neptune. Check out David and Ty at 8 o'clock on Thursday nights on the Nez Says Show. You got to check this out, okay? And it's on the David Nezol YouTube channel, 8 p.m. Thursday nights. All right, cheers, everybody. See you there.
And we're live, and you tuned in to Nez Says, a place where musicians can come together and inspire each other to play more guitar. Today is Thursday, January 7th of 2021, and welcome everybody. Hey Ty, how you doing?
Dave, happy Thursday and happy New Year. So glad to be with you here in the new year 21, and we've got a couple of weeks off for Christmas and New Year's, and it's nice to be back with you here on Thursday night. I'm so excited for tonight's guest. Such an inspirational player, and you know, personally one of my favorite guitar players. One of the most expressive players in the world, held by many as a prodigy guitar player, a virtuoso singer, songwriter, and producer, Mr. Josh Smith. Josh has recorded and performed with some of the world's most renowned artists. You know, Joe Bonamassa, Eric Johnson, Andy Timmons, and someone from England named Mick Jagger. Josh has recorded his first album at 14, and last year he recorded one of my favorite live albums of all time, Live at the Spud, an album he did at the legendary Baked Potato. Everything we need to know about guitar tone is captured on that record, and we are so honored that he's agreed to join us tonight for a conversation. Please welcome to Nez Says, Mr. Josh Smith.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for those kind words.
Are you kidding? That's the least we can do.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure that we're here. So, yeah, Josh, you've had such an illustrious career so far, and still you know, so much to go. Tell us about vision for the future. You've already accomplished so much. You've mastered that instrument that's strapped across your knee. Where to go? Where to go from here? What's next for you?
Yeah, man, a lot of things. You know, I'm 41 years old now, and like you said, I've been playing guitar for 36 years almost, and professionally for 27 years almost. I didn't realize it was so long. You know, so I've had to constantly be reevaluating and reimagining the goals that I set for myself, the things that I want to accomplish. And they've changed a lot over the years, obviously. For me now, what's most important is continuing doing what I'm doing, you know, releasing my own music, mostly about getting better. I want everything I release to be better than the last thing I released, everything I do to be better than the last thing that I release, you know, all that type of stuff. I'm producing a lot more records these years. Every year it's more, and I'm really enjoying that. So I'm planning on extending that. I've got the studio, you know, and I'm producing records here. I've got records that I produce with my partner, Joe Bonamassa. You know, we've produced a number of records together. We have a bunch more coming up. So there's a lot of that. You know, so it's just that. My biggest goal, though, would be to play more on the road, doing my stuff, take it up maybe one notch, you know, where I can play with the guys I want to play with all the time, make enough money where everybody's just smiling and happy, and that's the level that I've yet to crack. And that's the one that I really want to get to.
Amen. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Ty,
all right, so for the math, and so you were playing guitar at 3 years old. So you had an early start.
Yeah, really early. I got it when I was 3. I really started playing around 6, taking lessons. And yeah, there was no looking back after that. And then I started going to blues jams and stuff when I was 12, about to turn 13. And then by the time I was 13, I was going to these blues jams every week. And then bands started asking me to do gigs with them. And after that, it was like, every Friday and Saturday night of my teen years, that's what I did, and then eventually I had like full-time band gigs and was going on tour in spring break and summer break and winter break, of the school year, and making records. And, I felt like I'd found my path. And, then things change as you grow up. And, I end up kind of getting burnt out on not blues, but on trying to be an artist and doing everything myself and all that. That's when I decided to move to LA with my wife. That's when I also got married. So then we moved to LA, and that's when things pivoted, and I started doing the sideman thing, the session thing. And that was really, really great for my development as a musician. Good for stability and building my family and, buying a home and all the types of things. And it just made me a way better musician. But now somehow it's kind of swung back around where pretty much I only do my own stuff or producing for other artists and stuff like that, but definitely no touring as a sideman anymore. I still do some sideman sessions.
Josh, a lot of guitar players begin with the blues, and that's where you began. What was it about the blues that drew you in? I mean, why was that? Why were the blues the starting point for you?
Well, something about it hooked me immediately. And, everybody can relate to that magic feeling when you learn the pentatonic scale. And, the first time you're playing along, listening to a song, and you're able to find the key and then make something up that plays over that song, it's like, holy cow, you feel like you found magic in a bottle, lightning in a bottle, like something special. And I remember that feeling like explicitly, like, having my parents be listening to Stones or Allman Brothers or Hendrix or something, and just, finding the key and being able to express myself was amazing. But specifically hearing B.B. King and Albert King, my dad loved both B.B. King and Albert King. He's not a musician, but he loved blues and rock and roll. And I just remember feeling something different about these guys, feeling Albert King here. When he would take a solo, I would just feel it in here, even as a young kid. And it made me want to understand why that was. And that's part of my personality. I always was trying to figure out why this speaks to me versus that. What is it about it that got my interest? What got my attention? And that's the way I've always and that was what got my attention first.
So you were born in Connecticut. You grew up in Florida. Your dad's records of BB and Albert had this huge. So it sounds like Dad had a great record collection.
Huge vinyl collection, still does. And I was very fortunate in that. My dad loved the Stones, the Allman Brothers, Hendrix, Van Morrison, B.B. King, Albert King, but also every now and then Kind of Blue would come on, or Thelonious Monk, Round About Midnight, or Giant Steps. So he had big jazz, blues, and rock and roll collection. And then my mom also loved rock and roll, but she also loved Stax and Motown. So we would have Otis Redding and Sam and Dave and Sam Cooke and Ray Charles and Aretha. And so that's what I heard 24 hours a day in my house was just great music. I was very lucky.
Yeah, that's my background. The Temptations, love the Temptations.
Oh, yeah.
Sam and Dave, all that stuff. It's just the Philadelphia sound is I mean, yeah, you see all these Floyd Rose guitars behind me, but I'm all about the Philadelphia sound and the sound of a good telly, clean sound. That's where it's at. It's where it starts for me.
Yeah. So I was always immediately, besides Albert and BB and Otis Rush and Hendrix, and I was also immediately enthralled with what I was hearing Steve Cropper do and what I was hearing Cornell Dupree do and what I was hearing Teenie Hodges play with Al Green and these types of other, guys playing Telecasters, playing rhythm guitar, So, yeah, that was like the broad scope of what I heard in the house. We would watch sports because we're a big sports household, and we'd have the sound off and a record on, and we'd be watching the game. that was my house.
That's awesome. Before we go any further, let's just say hello to a couple to the people in the chat, and there's a question in the chat for you as well.
Okay.
So 708, how you doing? Headstock Harem, Dan of New Jersey, Ben Coombs, my lovely Desiree Dornan, Joe Hervey 84, Thomas Santiago, Dwight Bailey. Hello, hello, hello. Guitar Man 45. How are you? Janice Lala is here. There was a question here about the pickup. Oh, Marco Images is here. He asks, what are the pickups in your telly? You have great tone. Thanks and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the pickups in this, my main Chapin, are two. There's a Lawler in the neck, and I'm not quite sure he makes the same one anymore. It's a very old Lawler. It was called the Classic when I bought it. I think maybe he has the Vintage now or something. I don't know. That's what's in the neck. That sounds like this, I guess. And then in the bridge, the pickup was custom wound by Bill Chapin, who built this guitar, and it's really special. It's a mix of different Alnico magnets. It's kind of a special little pickup. Also, Bill's a little crazy about pots and caps matching the guitar and matching, everything has to kind of work in harmony. So this has a very special hi-fi tone cap inside. That's kind of an expensive cap. Special pots. I like these Bourne sealed pots, old vintage blue ones. So yeah, the bridge pickup sounds like this. And then they balance out. It's a flat pole, which is what I like 50s tellies. And then in between, they just sound really good. Something like that. You got to have that sound with a Telecaster.
Yeah.
Sure
So
do.
there, in my opinion, there are two types of players. One, there is a type that you have a ton of guitars, you play a guitar, a song, everything different. And then there's the type like you, Eddie Van Halen, those types. Basically one guitar forever. And I know you play a Strat too for like the Stevie Ray type sounds and the Stratty type sounds, but you are a one guitar guy, and there's a special place in my heart for that. It's an amazing thing to just have an instrument you can call yours and be so proficient on that instrument, and you're known for that. You've been playing that guitar for what, like 15 years now?
Yeah, about 15 years. Yeah, I was always enthralled with the guys who had a guitar that was like that. That's their number one. You know what I mean? I have so many friends who play so many guitars, but they've never had that one, that's associated with them. And it's not that it's a negative thing, but I always wanted that. So when I would get guitars, I would make them my main guitar, and I'd play them for everything, and it was like that when I was a kid. I had a Strat. It was my main Strat. That was my guitar kind of until this one, really. And yeah, I just love that. I look at Stevie with that number one. I look at Albert King with the V, and then he had the second V, Lonnie Mack with the V, Albert Collins with that Telecaster with the humbucker in the neck. You know what I mean? It's like, that's Larry Carlton with this 335. It's like those things are so cool to me that they have these instruments that worked for them. And the other half of it is it helps you in developing a sound that really is yours. And that was always really important to me. I wanted to have a sound that was mine. So when I play this guitar, as opposed to any of the other 40 other guitars that are here in the studio, this guitar, there's no thinking involved. There's no filter when I play this guitar. I'm just myself. Mm-hmm. Every other guitar has some sort of mental, projection or connotation that it brings up and makes me think of different things when I play them. This one has none of that associated with. This one is just I'm me when I play this guitar.
Makes sense. Awesome.
Well, it probably makes a difference too, right? I mean, I've heard you talk, Josh, in the past that the guitar is a tool for expression, and how you're expressing yourself. And I've heard you say before too that you don't like to think when you're playing the guitar, that you want it to be an expressive moment for you. So all of that makes sense. Dave, do you have a number one? I mean, have you discovered a number one yet?
Well, when I was gigging, when we were all gigging, I have this one guitar. It's a Strat, but it's a single hum configuration, just a regular Sunburst Strat that I had built for me. It does say Fender on the headstock, but I had it built for me because I always I like the Strat shape. I do have a Les Paul. I have a bunch of stuff, but the most comfortable guitar on me is a Stratocaster because I'm a big guy. And I wanted to have the humbucker and the single coil sound so I can do all kinds of music. And, I play locally, so I'm doing covers of everything that you could possibly do. So you need that one guitar. And that was basically the one guitar for the last 10 or 12 years of my life that I played every night. So if you want to call that a main guitar, a one main guitar, that's it. But, nowadays that we're home, I get to fiddle on everything that I have. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's different, like Kirk Fletcher, my brother, my best friend, he doesn't have a number one guitar. Every time you see Kirk play, literally every time he'll be playing a different guitar. You know what I mean? But he sounds like Kirk no matter what. It's not a negative, but we just have a difference of philosophy on that. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, for me, it was always part of kind of finding my voice was having a guitar that was kind of linked to that voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm a huge
fan. Josh,
of
I gotta add, you started playing at such a young age, and you were playing live. You mentioned blues jams. You were in Florida. You're playing Monday nights at Musicians Exchange. I mean, you're around. You're around a lot of great players at a very early age. Tell us about the support system you had around you.
I was really fortunate. I came up, I don't know about the last, but one of the last generations of guys who, if I had wanted to and I could convince my parents to, I could have gone to see somebody play 7 nights a week, somebody great, playing blues or jazz somewhere, and I could have played gigs every night. And when I started playing gigs, I was playing 3-4 sets a night where I was forced to grow like so fast overnight. It took supportive parents to be willing to take me to those types of things. It took supportive adults who were willing to look at this little kid and know that I wasn't full of shit, that I wasn't trying to be a novelty, or, I wasn't doing it for extra money in my pocket or for unpure reasons. Like, no, it was obvious if you met me even back then, how much I wanted this. Like, I loved it and I wanted to be there. And they could see I was willing to put in the work. If they would give me advice or tell me, try something, or if I'd make a mistake, I'd come back the next week and I'd have that fixed. I would not make that mistake again. I'd have worked of what I needed to work on. And so, I had a lot of guys who were very willing to give time and wisdom and little bits of advice. And I'm grateful for all of those years. They're directly responsible for the musician that I am now. All those hours and days and nights of gigs, all the advice, the kind words, the support. I think sometimes it gets overlooked, like the local guitar players that you grow up around, because we all have our big heroes. I've already named a ton of them, but there's like the little guys that who just play in the bar bands around town that are the first people you actually see play live, and who give you little bits of advice and will tell you, man, your guitar intonation sucks. You got to work on that. Or will tell you that amp, there's a reason that you're not liking your tone. You only have 10 watts there. There's not enough headroom for what you're trying to do. Well, I didn't know what that meant. All those types of little things, those, it's all those guys who really help you kind of learn the ropes at the beginning. Of course, the heroes are what are influencing your vocabulary, but it's like these local guys and friends are equally responsible for kind of your formative years.
That really is so important. And so you go from playing in jams, local jams, and you join your first band. What was the Rhino Cats the first band?
That was first. Yeah.
So share with us a couple of key takeaways that you had from your first band experience that you still remind yourself of today.
Well, what's amazing about it looking back is these guys were actually really, really quality musicians. Like, they were real good musicians. The guitar, the auxiliary guy who played guitar, keys, sang, kind of leader, Rick Cafaro, he was a good singer. He could read really well. He played keys well. He played guitar well. He was a learned musician, played jazz, because his family, his parents were jazz musicians. The bass player, same. His father was a jazz bass player. Their two fathers actually played together. Were a jazz band around Miami and Fort Lauderdale. So like they'd, I'd hear jazz at home, but then they'd be talking about jazz all the time. And I remember going with them to see their parents play, and we're talking at the time, these were 70, almost 80-year-old men, the parents. But like, I remember walking in and seeing them play Now's the Time, Charlie Parker, and realizing, no, that's blues. They're playing the blues. I like this. This is cool. There's so many little moments of things that I'm grateful for being around. They never condescended to me or treated me like a little kid. They were respectful of me, respectful of the amount of work that I put in, because they knew I wanted to be good. And so they told me when I fucked up, and I was grateful for that. They would tell me, hey, you can't do this. This doesn't work over that chord, or, you're playing too loud, man. You're disrespecting the band. You're all over the top of us. I didn't know all these things, things like that. So I'm grateful for all of that stuff.
Yeah. But at what point, Josh, so you're, and I don't want to belabor the point, but you're a kid. I mean, at what point do you look at these adults and say, my musical growth is dependent on playing with these adults? At what point do you make that decision and you say, well, I'm going to go play with these adults?
Well, that decision was almost made for me, because I couldn't find anybody my age, at least like in my peripheral view, like friends or people at my schools, those people I knew. I couldn't find anybody my age normally who had put in the amount of work I'd put in and was as serious about being as good a musician as they could be. I was finding kids who treated it more like a hobby. And then if I did manage to find somebody who was really into it, like I was, they hated that kind of music I liked. You know what I mean? Because this was the tail end of shredding and heavy metal and then going into grunge. And so they were just listening to different music. So when I suggest let's play Thrill Is Gone or something, to them that was like, fuck no, I don't want to play this. I want to play Youth Gone Wild by Skid Row. You know what I mean? It's like, I remember that vividly, like being somewhere with a group of kids and me wanting to play Thrill Is Gone and other guys wanting to play Skid Row. Like, I remember that clear as day. So it was like, you know what? If I want to get better, I knew I had to be playing live. And so that meant if I was going to play the stuff I wanted to play live, I needed to find adults to play with.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty mature outlook.
And it makes sense, too.
For such a young guy at the time to have, because the popular music at the time was Skid Row. And it wasn't necessarily The Thrill Is Gone. And I mean, heaven forbid you throw out a Muddy Waters song and you want to do that. Yeah. At the time. But I mean, that's a pretty mature outlook. So after the first band, the second band is Josh Smith and the Frost.
Yeah.
And so you take those lessons learned into the second band. Where does the growth? Tell us about the growth from there.
Well, it was kind of a, step-by-step progression. So, and it was very natural. Like, so the Rhino Cats asked me to join the band. And so then it was just the Rhino Cats. And then they started, the Rhino Cats featuring Josh Smith, because people wanted to see this kid, the curiosity of the whole kid thing. But then it became like a real thing. We made a record So then it was like, well, now it's kind of Josh Smith and the Rhino Cats, because everybody was coming to see the kid play guitar. And I was writing songs. By then, I was the guy writing, we would play covers at first, but I started writing songs and trying to sing terribly and painfully. But I knew it was important, so I started doing that, And so I kind of not took over, but I was the one, they wanted to they were local musicians. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what they wanted. They just play gigs, and let's get as many gigs as we can. I had other goals. I wanted to get as good as I could and get as much experience as I could. So I was the one pushing, writing songs. Hey, let's change the set. Let's put transitions between these songs. We should break it down here. Let's get a real arrangement going on. All that type of stuff was really important to me. Then when it came time to branch out of South Florida and get maybe out of Florida, because I started to get some interest once the records came out. Well, then some of these guys didn't want to go on the road. They were older guys who didn't want to go in a van traipsing across the United States for little money. So things just kind of naturally shifted to where, okay, I'm kind of really am taking over the band now. And so that's when it became Josh Smith and the Frost. Same bass player stayed, got a different drummer, and it just kind of became the trio where I really took the reins.
So is that the pivotal point that where you stopped being just a guitar player and became more of an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. Because then at that point I was already 100% kind of dedicated to this is it. This is my life. Rest of my life. This is all I'm going to do. I had put out a couple records with the Rhino Cats. It was Josh Smith and the Rhino Cats. And yeah, I'd written a bunch of songs. Almost all the songs on those records actually were my songs. And at the same time, there was, a cheesy upswell of these young blues guitar players coming out. You're talking post Stevie Ray Vaughan. You had this whole little grouping of young guys starting to have success. So it was, myself and Derek Trucks, who were really close back then because we're both from Florida and we played together a lot. But also Joe Bonamassa and Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Johnny Lang. Yeah, so I started to see these guys having success. So it was like, well, I'm doing the right, this is it. I'm set. I'm in my path. My career path is set for me. So yeah, that was the moment, of I already know what I'm doing with my life.
That's amazing. Our in the chat, our friend Jay Hannon says you can't treat it like a hobby. It has to be an obsession. And at that point for you, it was certainly an obsession. You were totally dedicated. I mean, just like you were talking about in the first band, you weren't looking around seeing contemporaries treating it with the same level of dedication and respect that you were treating it. So and I know everybody's different. I'm kind of a nerd. And I'm very singly focused. When I get into something, like I said, I want to be the best I can at that. So for me, guitar was always it. It was always, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be the best I can. I'm also kind of a pretty dull straight shooter. I've never drank a beer. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never smoked a joint. I don't care about any. I just care about this. Once I found it, it was I had enough for the rest of my life to keep me occupied. You know what I mean? And
yeah, absolutely. I know.
So I was very singularly focused.
That's amazing.
Great. So you're going around in a van with your band.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, what's your practice regiment?
Oh, good question.
Well, before we started really touring, and I was just playing weekend, when I'm really, really young, I was practicing, 7 hours a day. I mean, I'd go to school. I'd practice before school. During high school, I was lucky enough to get to play at school. I'd come home and I'd play all night. I'd do my homework and I'd play and watch Yankees baseball or whatever game was on. And, then watch Conan O'Brien and Tonight Show and then play and then go to bed. That was constant practice all the time. Once the gigging started to become more prevalent, where I was working more, I didn't have quite as much time to practice. But, the gigs kind of supersede the practice. It's you work on an idea and then maybe you don't work on it for 8 hours that day. But I was lucky. Then I would get to just go straight to a gig that night and apply it. And that actually helped me learn things much faster. And that was very fortunate to have so much practical application time to take all the things I'm working on, and I would immediately try them on stage. And half the time I'd fail or whatever, not fail, but not really know how to use it yet. But doing it on stage like that made it much quicker become part of my shit.
So when you're practicing, do you have a warm-up regimen, or you just get into it?
I don't have a warm-up regimen. I never have. I try not to cool down, if that makes sense. I play so much every day.
It makes sense to me because I have a good buddy who works 40 hours a week, and then as soon as he gets home, he plays, and he can play like he's playing a gig. And then I have other friends like myself that have to warm up to get the hands working before even playing a note, before playing a gig. So, man, that just, to me, that blows my mind that you don't that you can just go there and just start doing your thing. That just always impresses me.
It's something I've become more interested in during this pandemic, figuring out, because for the first time in my lifetime, there were periods at the beginning of this pandemic where I went a week without playing the guitar. And maybe, I don't mean total. I played a little bit, but the first time really in life where I wasn't really that motivated to do anything at the beginning because I just canceled so much work, and I was just like, I just wanted to sit around and eat ice cream and watch television. And, so I did take stock of, how it felt when I picked up the guitar after I had spent maybe 4 days without playing. And then I never let that happen again. But, part of it is I use really heavy strings, and I've built up a very strong hand feel. Like I have a lot of strength in my hands. And then the amount of just sheer hours and gigs playing these strings, playing solos, for hours every night, I have built up like a lot of stamina and strength, and I try to make sure that maintains. It's funny, I produced a record this year for Artur Menezes, great young blues guitar player from Brazil who lives here in LA. It's the second record I've produced for him. And he made the comment, we were sitting here and I'm sitting in my chair and he's sitting next to me playing guitar on a song, overdubbing guitar. And we're trying to figure out what I wanted him to play, what I was hearing, what he was hearing. And I think it was pretty late at night. It was like 9 p.m. and we'd been working since 11. And I hadn't touched a guitar once the entire day. And he said, man, can you just show me what you would play? So I just grabbed his guitar and played, and he immediately made a comment like, dude, how can you play like that? You haven't even touched the guitar for 12 hours, and that we could have recorded that first take, and it was a clear thought, and it was executed perfectly. And I'm like, man, well, I think it's just because of the sheer amount of playing that I do regularly that I don't cool down, I try to.
So you're playing 13 through 60s on that guitar? Is that it?
13 through 58. Yeah.
Okay. And on a jazz box, I watched the video of yours the other day. Did I hear you say you play 16s on a jazz box?
Sometimes, but those are flat ones, so I'm not worried about bending.
So what's your low E string on that set?
Also like 58 or 60, just really thick top. Yeah.
So what's the attraction, Josh, to heavier strings? Because all right. So look, a video came out on another channel, and we've all seen that
I know
video.
The video you're talking about. You're using the wrong string.
It makes a lot of sense, right? So
yeah.
So tell us about your particular preference for heavier gauges.
All right, let me preface this by saying I have very strong thoughts on people telling other people what they use is right or wrong. My thought is, if you like it the best, then that means it is the best. And for someone else to say you sound better with this or that, well, if you like the way I play now, I guarantee you would less enjoy hearing me play on a guitar that I wasn't comfortable on with strings that I don't like, or maybe you like this pedal better than the ones that I normally choose, but you would probably not enjoy my playing as much if I had to play the pedal you want me to play. You know what I mean? So I think people lose sight of that a little bit. That being said, for me, the heavy strings, there's a few factors. Number one, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. Let's just get that out of the way. I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. His tone is killer. You know, I like the fight of the strings. I like that there is no phoning it in with these strings on my guitar. You know what I mean? I can't relax. I have to be on when I pick up my guitar. I like that. It puts me in the right headspace. I like the tone. You know, does it work for everything? No. But for single note soloing, I think it sounds better than any other strings that I've tried. And let's face it, I spend 90% of the time soloing. That's what people want to hear from me. And I like what it does for my tone. I like the intonation and tuning stability. It stays in tune better than lighter strings. I mean, so it's all those factors. I just like all those things about it and the headspace it puts me in. And now at this point, I've been playing them for 25 years like this. So I'm so used to it that playing something else is alien to me. You know, my vibrato is fucked up when I pick up another guitar. My bending is terrible. The guitar goes out of tune instantly because my hand just will manhandle those strings. That being said, do I keep a guitar here in tens? I do. That's the lowest I will keep one on. And it's only if I need to play rhythm guitar that just sounds better with tens. Things like Paul Jackson Jr. or David Williams or Prince or things like that. That sounds better. I'll admit. That sounds better with those strings than it sounds with these strings, you know? So, but yeah, that's the reason I like these strings.
So how many times have you had that? Go ahead, Ty.
No, well, the takeaway from me on that, Dave, is if it sounds right to you, it's right.
I agree.
That's the key takeaway right there.
I agree.
Again, that's what I'm saying. That's what I say to everybody with every one of these questions. When blues guys over the years have given me shit for having too many pedals on the pedal board. Well, it's like, well, did you enjoy my playing? Oh, of course, you sounded great. I was like, well, then what does it matter what's on my pedal board, you know, if I'm not plugged straight into the amp? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm happier on the gig, which means I'm going to give you a better performance. Shouldn't that be what you want? Me to be in the most comfortable place I could be?
That's exactly right. And just to go back on the strings for 1 second, nobody's going to tell Billy Gibbons that he sucks using sevens.
Yeah.
Nobody.
No. B.B. King used eights and nines. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Clapton used nines for most of his life. I understand. I'm going to embarrass my best friend who's probably watching. He's a big fan of yours as well. But I became aware of you because my buddy Dennis Del Gaudio, who is an alumni on this show, he's a local New York player here. He plays with the Lords of 52nd Street, which is the backup band to Billy Joel, the original backup band, and he has his own band.
Great guitar player.
Amazing guitar player, does everything, blues,
awesome.
Chicken picking, everything. But I became aware of you because he bought a Schmidt-Array pedal board, a G2, the Volante, all the stuff, the Chula. You know, I bought one. He bought 3 Chulas because of you. I bought one of his. So really? I mean, you know, he saw what you did and loved your tones and makes a living making his sounds, you know, taking from what you did and makes his own sound. And I became aware of you from there and started watching all your videos and Dan Steingarten and all that and all those guys. And man, you know, I have to say it again. It is such a pleasure to have you on here and talk about all this stuff and listen to your story. It's just, the hair, whatever hair I have left on my arm is raised. It's really cool.
Thanks, man. Well, thank you for your friend for the support and checking out the Chula and all that stuff. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You were so in touch with the guitar at such a young age. I mean, you were convinced at such an early age that this was it for you. You know, that this was going to be the pursuit. You know, a young blues player growing up in Florida, probably not the blues capital of the world. And look, I mean, the alumni, your contemporaries, you included, all the ones you mentioned, Joe and Derek and Johnny, and yourself. I mean, all of you guys have carved out a unique voice for yourself on the instrument. All great players, but all very different type of type of players as well.
I think before we get gloss that part over, I think what's amazing about all those guys you just mentioned is, yes, everybody has their own voice, but I can't believe even that all of us still do this. This is all we've done our whole life. I mean, the odds of all of these guys having, now everybody had their own path, but Derek and I, every time I see him, I say, man, isn't it amazing though that it actually worked to some degree where we still just do this only, that's amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
I mean, every time I think I hear a great new thing with a slide guitar, then Derek Trucks one-ups it. I mean, it really is an amazing thing that all of you guys continue to push forward in such an innovative way. We were talking prior to the broadcast that one of the things that I personally love about your playing so much is that it's not just creating great melody over chord changes, that it's not just chasing or playing over changes or chasing chords or whatever phrase we want to use, but that you're actually leading, your style actually leads from chord to chord, that it's very unique, and reminds all of us that simply plays over chords that we still have a lot to learn.
Well, I mean, so much of that for me is driven by that pursuit inside of me that I was always trying to get better. I'm still always trying to get better. So when I started to hear the differences between, okay, let me listen to this guy and what he's playing in this solo. Yeah, I can hear when another chord comes along, if it's not diatonic, it sounds like he's changing keys. He's just playing an arpeggio. You know what I mean? He's playing a scale, but it's abrupt. Like you play this great thing, and then you play another great thing, but they weren't really connected in any way. You know what I mean? And then I would listen to Charlie Parker or Wes Montgomery or something like that, or Robin Ford, and I would hear, oh, wait a minute, same changes, but somehow he made a lick that went between these two chords that are not diatonically connected, and it still sounded like it was a blues solo to me, that I could hear it in my head, like that makes sense. And so, I started to take stock of those types of things and try to figure out, how do you do that? It was just, daunting at first. Like, how do you actually play through the changes as opposed to over them? And it was like, little by little, I started to pick up little ways to. For me, it's like I've said before, it's about connecting dots. I'm building literally bridges between every chord, and hopefully the thing that gets written across all those bridges and over every chord should sound like the same idea. It should be seamless. That's what I'm trying to do.
Well, it's working.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's definitely
Josh,
working.
when you were developing, when you were developing that stylistically, was there one particular light bulb moment for you, or was it just a culmination of several things?
There were many light bulb moments, many. The biggest ones would be like when I was able to tie things to music I already loved, and all of a sudden things would register. What's actually happening here? You know what I mean? So like when I would hear like Fathead Newman play with Ray Charles on a slow blues, and he would take a sax solo, in A, and he'd get to the 4, and he'd play something like that, and realizing, okay, he's playing 4 to 4 minor, and that 4 minor resolution back to the 1 is like a really strong connection, or this resolution. Or when I would listen to Freddie Green playing rhythm guitar with Count Basie and hear him play like to get to the 4, something like this, and to get back to the 1 play and have those little 2-5-1 turnarounds in there, or even just chromatically hear him go. all those little moves, maybe a diminished chord as a bridge, a chromatic run, a 2-5-1, when I was able to realize that this is what I was hearing Charlie Parker do when he would play licks like that, like literally I just spelled out every one of those chords that I used to connect those dots, you know what I mean? And that's when it started to be like, oh, here's another thing I can use to connect this chord to this one, and here's another thing I can use to connect this chord. And it was like that opened the door, the floodgates, because I felt, well, I already know how to play this. So when I land on a chord, I'm good. Most chords I knew at least one thing to play, and then as I got better, I would learn 2 things to play, 3 things to play, 4 things to play. But then that didn't help me with the dots. So then these little bridges became the way for me to connect the dots, where I could spend all my brain power thinking only about that, and the rest of the stuff, the blues, the scales, that was muscle memory. I'd land on a chord and I'd know, okay, it's an E7. I could play E blues. For an A, I could play A blues. I can play a arpeggio, whatever. I've got things I can play. I could play the Mixolydian scale. I could do all this stuff. That just kind of took care of itself. I just used all my brain power on connecting dots.
All right, so Josh, I want to get into 2 technical questions. I mean, things our
Sure.
audience asks about a lot. How important is intervallic understanding for you? Like understanding the relation of intervals?
So important. So
Okay.
important. Because, let's face it, when you're playing over a chord, that's what you got to know. You got to know what makes this chord up, right? Then you also got to know diatonically what's the scale of the key that we're in, so that then you can make choices. You can make relationships, happen. So like when a song comes on, let's say I'm playing, some pop. Right? 1, 6, 4, 5, something like that. I've got to know, that, okay, all those chords are diatonic, right? So I don't have to do much heavy lifting now. I could play the G major scale over this entire thing. But, knowing the intervals in these chords, if it's going to be an E minor 7, or an E minor 9, or if it's going to be a C major 7 and a D7 for the 5 and a G major 7, figuring out that I can play that stuff even when those chords don't sound, you know what I mean? Because I know they work. Or when they do sound and I know they work. And then I can start to do all these other things like superimposing modes. You can only do this stuff if you're super comfortable with the chords themselves and what make them up. So those to me are literally the 2 things that made me the most comfortable on this fretboard, were the ability to, number 1, just play the pentatonic scale in all 5 positions, everywhere, up and down the neck, every key, but then playing the diatonic major scale as chords in every key. So that means really just knowing, major, minor, minor, major, dominant 7, minor, half diminished, major, and then starting to learn that from every shape, being able to go like this, and or from the D shape, being able to go like that, and that was what made me 100% comfortable wherever I was. So, when I started to get into songs that had more chords and I'm playing B.B. King and someone says, go to the 6, I've got it here. And if someone says, well, go to the 6, but play it as a minor 9, I've got it here. And I can get that sound in by playing. So it was, it's incredibly crucial to know your circle of fifths and the major scale. I mean, this is literally the fundamental building blocks of everything we do.
All right, so that's gold right there for everyone watching this video. That is gold. Intervals, circle of fifths, understanding intervals, and the formulas that we use to create all of these melodies. Thank you for that, Josh.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, and I don't mean this in a negative way at all, But a lot of guys who I've talked to over the years, when I talk about blues with them, they barely even know what it means. Actually, they know a blues is a 1-4-5, but they can't 100% even articulate what does that mean, the 4 and the 5. They know what they are in every key, but why is that the 4? Why is that the 5? You know, and it's like, well, they don't realize because they don't know the major scale. They never learned the major scale and understood these, you know, the intervallic relationships between each chord and the major scale. So just that simple thing opens up a lot of doors. You know what I mean? It opens up knocks down barriers, because you'll feel comfortable that when a song gets played, 90% of the songs that you're going to get thrown into the fire outside of the jazz world. So in a rock and roll, pop, soul, R&B, 90% of the chords are going to come from that family of whatever key you're going to play in. So there's no way you should ever be able to get thrown. You know, if somebody's playing that, you can damn sure bet the next chord is either going to be this or going to be this. You know what I mean? And there's no, and if you miss it the first time, you should know right away when someone else plays, oh, I fucked up. It's the 6 instead of the 2. You know what I mean? Or whatever.
Yeah.
And that just being comfortable in that helps break down a lot of barriers. But a lot of guys are not comfortable with that.
No, I hear you. What do you say to the rock guy, the guy that's steeped in rock and roll, that's completely intimidated by the word jazz, let alone a 2-5-1? What do you say to that guy to encourage him to begin exploring that world? What words of encouragement do you have for the rock guy to begin his journey down a more jazzy path?
Grab your ankles and kiss your ass goodbye.
No, I mean, it's important that the realization that this stuff is not rocket science, and that in no way learning any of this stuff is going to make you a worse rock and roll guitar player. You know what I mean? It's going to make you a better rock and roll guitar player. You know, the ability to be playing that, you know, if you're going from whatever, 2 chords, if you're going between the 1 and the 6 like that, the ability to go, you know, and then maybe to get there, I'm going to play. So, okay, there I played a diminished passing chord, right, to lead me between the 1 and the 6. You know, that's like, you want that. You want the ability to be able to do those things. Maybe instead the next time, I'm going to play a 2-5-1 to lead me between the 1 and the 6. So I'm going to play. Like something like that. You know, or you know, and just the best way to start working on this stuff and to get your, you know, your fuse lit, I guess, is to apply it to your favorite song in the whole world. So take whatever that song is, something you're so comfortable on, and start to bring in chromatic moves. Start to bring in diminished chords. Start to bring in 2-5-1s. Start to connect dots. So like I said, it could be knocking on heaven's door. You know, you could play. You know, start to hear that stuff in a song you're really familiar with. And little by little, you'll see it'll just like, things will just open up in this way that oh, wow, this has been here all along, and it's not as complicated as I think it is.
That's such a great working example.
You know, I could see mostly doing that stuff like to Beatles songs too, because it to me, in my brain, I hear all that and within the structure of a Beatles song to begin with.
Absolutely. You know, and you know, I mean, let's talk about really at the base level. all of these things that I'm talking about right now truly only exist for one reason: tension and resolve. That's what makes great improvisation, what makes great harmony, great melody, and that's what you're doing when you're improvising. You're making melody, you're choosing harmony, you're making things happen. You're trying to build tension and then resolve it in some way. So, again, it may be chromatic. I may just play. I may hammer on that flat 5. Right? Or maybe I'll play a diminished chord to lead me there. Or again, maybe I'll play a 2-5-1. Something like that. But the reason those things work is because they create a new landing spot. When you hear me play, the next chord is going to be that D right there, right? Or when you hear me play, I'm going to play something like that right after it. You know what I mean? And that's what we're doing. That's really what's happening. These guys are finding a way to create all those tension moments, to connect the dots, and then play all the great stuff they already know that works on those chords. Mm-hmm. So it's the same, there's no difference between the solo that John Coltrane takes on Giant Steps and the solo of the guitar in Sleepwalk. Da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-ba-bum-bum-bum. He's just playing through the changes. Yeah, John's changes are a little more difficult, and they're fast, and he's playing some more abstract ideas over the chords, things he knows that works that maybe you don't know yet. But the thing behind it all, the reason why, same thing.
So, you just blew my mind up. Awesome. It's good stuff.
Well, I mean, that's something that any guitar player can apply. There's some real key takeaways there. Understanding intervallic formulas, understanding the basic premise. Josh is using his ears. He's listening as he's playing. Those are all key takeaways, for all of us to take a step forward.
Yeah. And again, you got to be cognizant of what's your goals too. Not everybody wants to be, this guy or that guy. Where do you want to be? That's what's most important. If there's something you're hearing in here and you can't do it, then you got a problem. You got to figure it out. You know what I mean? If something's in your way and you got to knock that wall down. Whereas I would never tell somebody who's content, hey, you don't know enough shit. I don't think that way. Contentment is a good thing. Like being happy is a great thing. But for me, I was hearing things that I couldn't convey, and it made me angry. Like, I hear this, I want to be able to know what this is. I want to play this, and I think that's important, and then being cognizant, especially as an improviser, of telling a true story, not just meandering, not just playing whatever, not just playing something because it works or because your muscle memory tells you this is how you've always done it. Playing truly what you're hearing and what you're feeling. That's another thing. It's like we've all been there and walked in a bar and seen a guy playing, a blues or whatever, and the solo sounds like this. Whatever. No wrong notes, nothing technically wrong, but not really saying that much. You know what I mean? As opposed to when you walk in that same bar and you hear a guy go like, again, same thing. I played nothing but the pentatonic scale in that solo, but I made the changes, even though it's just simple 1, 4, and 5. I highlighted them as they went by. I created a theme that went through that solo, a narrative that, made sense all the way through. I said something. I told a story. And yeah, that's what makes people who don't play guitar pay attention. When you tell play a solo like that, that's what gets people's attention, as opposed to just just a meandering, a run-on sentence that doesn't have a cohesive vibe.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense.
That's
Ben Tom,
a great example. Yeah.
Ben Tom's a good guy in our chat here. He says it was the mid '90s in South Florida. My classmate in Miami, Jeff Anthony, told me about a young blues guitar playist he played with that was killer. I've been a fan ever since.
Wow. Yeah, so Jeff was the second drummer in the Frost. Got him straight out of University of Miami. Yeah.
Great jazz program at University of
Miami.
Miami.
He was there to play jazz, playing drums, and I was getting ready to go on the road, and the adult drummer, older guy, didn't want to go on the road. And, my dad was like, we should just call down to UM and see if there's any kids who are getting ready to graduate and want to go on the road, something like that, and that's what we did. We had auditions for a bunch of, like 20-year-old, 21-year-old kids. And Jeff was the first guy after the original drummer. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Tom is an alum of that program at the University of Miami, and so is your friend Andy Timmons.
Yeah. It's an illustrious program, man, with a long history of guitar players, drummers, keyboard players, a lot of great musicians. There's a huge scene here in LA of UM graduates, there's a lot of them out here. I didn't go there, but because that's where I grew up, yeah, I'm very familiar with so many guys who went there and the history of it and all that. Yeah.
Very cool.
So, Josh, I mean, you mentioned something earlier. I mean, we were talking about facility, and we're talking about the work that you got to put in to develop the facility. But the ultimate goal is to be musical with that facility. So, as a developing player, what advice would you give to that developing player as to how to allocate his time? I mean, talk to us about the dichotomy about investing time into the facility, development of the technique, and actually being musical with that technique. Because you just illustrated it. You just said you walk into a bar, you hear all of this, it's great, but it's not moving, whereas this is actually moving. How should a young player be investing their time?
Okay. Well, number one, whatever you practice, it should be with the intent of, I'm going to use this on the stage. And then you should take it, if I know we don't have the opportunity now, but that's the best place you have, to try things is in the real world. So you want to, whatever you're working on, you want to take it immediately and apply it, because it doesn't matter if you fall on your face with it. The second you get something to work with that idea, it's like automatically that idea becomes a real part of your bag now, as opposed to just this abstract thing that you're working on, So that's important, like having the ability to immediately apply stuff. Number two, when improvising, you have to treat everyone with a level of respect and importance. Like, this is not a throwaway solo. It doesn't matter if it's only 8 bars or whatever. This is not a throwaway. Like, I'm going to tell a story. It's going to have a beginning and an ending. It's going to have a theme that goes through it. It's going to make the changes. It's going to convey my feeling right now, how I feel, my emotion. So maybe I'm aggressive right now, and I'm going to play this solo aggressive. Maybe that's the right call for this song and what's happening. You have to treat every solo like that. There shouldn't be any that are just like, whatever, it's key A, here we go, blah, no thought. No, they all have equal amounts of importance, and you've got to treat them that way, because then that's the difference between, when people listen to you play and then they feel like they can see that and hear that in your playing. Like, holy shit, that guy means it. He means what he's playing all the time. So you got to approach it like that, like with that kind of intent.
Oh, good advice.
It's excellent advice. Absolutely.
Good. Josh, I got to ask you. I mentioned in the opening how good the tone was. It's always good, but the live record at the Baked Potato, Can you tell us about the gear that you were
Sure.
using on that gig?
Yeah. So, I hadn't made a live record since I was 15. So it was like I wanted to make the best sounding live record I could. I wanted it to be trio. I wanted it just the three of us going for it, no holds barred. And I also kind of wanted to put a little bow on like the last 10 years of records and songs and things I've been doing in my live set and kind of my music. Like, not like because I'm never going to play it again, but kind of just like, hey, here's a good retrospective of all the records and the things I've been doing live in the last 5-10 years, and blah, blah, blah. So then, when it came time to getting the tone, I'm mostly just concerned about capturing it authentically to what I'm hearing in the room. So to me, I've always loved those live records where you can hear the room, where it doesn't sound like a studio record 100%. Because now, let's face it, our equipment is really great, and we're really good technically at recording. And I could have taken this live from the Spud and had it sound. You wouldn't have known the difference if we recorded it here in my studio or live at the Spud in front of the audience. So I didn't want that kind of a live record. I wanted it obvious that this was a live record, that there's a room there full of people, that my guitar is bouncing off the walls, and and I'm playing loud and all that. So we set about to kind of make sure that we captured that. I'm using 2 amps. I'm using my main Morgan JS40, which is like a super reverb style amp with a 212 cabinet. That's the main amp. And then I was using a Vox Cambridge Reverb, a vintage Tube 164 with Mullards, a killer vintage amp. Because I like the Vox and the Fender together. That's like my preferred combination. That was just my regular pedal board stuff. So, 90% is the Chula. If I'm playing the Strat, it's a Duelist or the Myriad Fuzz, which is my fuzz. My slapback from the TC Electronics, the tone print that I did for them. A lot of stuff from the H9, but those things in the H9 are normally song dependent, things that are for specific moments. Other than like the Leslie, I use the Leslie in the H9 all the time. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I mic'd each amp with 2 mics, Ribbon and 57. Actually, I brought them all the mics from my studio. So my Unidyne 57s, my Mesanovich Ribbon mics, the stuff that I use here in the studio. And then I use the aux actually to create even another just room sound. I captured it from the JS40 and captured only the room simulation in the aux, just so I could have more room to blend in addition to the room mics we had. Because like I said, I just wanted that sound. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Mm-hmm. We were using Universal Audio pre's and converters for the whole thing.
Just such a great sounding record. Yeah,
on your Duelist,
great sounding guitar.
Yeah, on your Duelist, how do you like the Bluesbreaker side?
I never use it.
You never do, and
I'm not a Bluesbreaker guy. I'm not a Bluesbreaker guy. I like it the way it sounds, but just being honest, the way that I would set the Bluesbreaker where I think it sounds best is then redundant to me with what I do with the Chula and other things. I would normally with the Duelist, if I was going to use it, I'd set that side more for an organic sound that I would use with my Telly. But I don't need that. I've got the sound that I use with my Telly. So it really was all about this Tube Screamer side for me. So that's why I asked him, hey, can you make the Soloist? And that's why he makes the Soloist now. That's just that side.
I agree. And I think that's the best Tube Screamer I've ever heard is the Tube Screamer.
In my opinion, without question, it's the best Tube Screamer there is. Yeah. Like, it's still a Tube Screamer, don't get me wrong, but it's the best one around. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Josh, you have 11 records out.
Yeah.
If there's a viewer tonight that is meeting you for the first time and they want to begin taking a dive into your catalog.
Yeah.
With such a large catalog today, where would you advise them to begin to really understand who you are as a player?
Well, a live record would be a good way to start because, like I said, I really did try to use it as a way to wrap up everything I've done in the last, 5 to 10 years. So there's a little bit from every record, and there's kind of every style. So, if you wanted the best kind of representative of what I do, that would be it. The record previous to that, Burn to Grow, I think is the most representative originals wise of where I'm at. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but mostly a blues based thing. I've got the record Still, which is more jazz. It is a jazz record. Inception is like my instrumental guitar record, so that's all sorts of different guitar playing. Yeah, they're all kind of different. That's why I would say maybe the live record is the best place to start.
Mm-hmm. Hugh Caldwell in our chat asks if you've ever played with Larry McCray, and what do you think of him?
Okay, Larry's one of my favorites. I've known Larry since I was 14 years old. I'm a huge fan. I think he's one of the most underrated guys on the scene. And without speaking too much out of school, we're trying to figure out a way for me to produce his next record, actually. So working on that.
I love Larry McCray. The first time I ever met him was 2008, and I was in the house band at the Gibson Jam in the Gibson Summer Jam down in Tennessee, and we played together. I think I played one song with him, and then I took him home to his house, and it was the most. He was just the nicest guy in the world.
Yep.
Every time I call him since then, he remembers who I am. He's just the guy that remembers everybody. He's a sweetheart. He's an amazing player.
Yep.
Just
an amazing
tone. Yeah, everything about him is just
just a great dude. Yeah.
Everything about
He's
him
one of
is
those guys from afar that I've always wished he should be bigger than he is. You know what I mean? Like he should be. Yeah. So, I've wanted to make a record with him for a long time to help in any way I can. And Joe and I have talked about too. Joe loves him as well, Bonamassa. So I've talked to Larry about, hey, let me help you make a record. Joe has talked about it, so we're trying maybe, and sometime in the future to produce a record for him.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Talk about Joe Bonamassa within this pandemic. The mindset of that guy, he's not only is he a brilliant guitar player, not only is he the best at making money at whatever he puts his hands on, but how about during a pandemic to facilitate having cardboard cutouts to fill an auditorium and do a live show where, out of nothing. That guy has got brains forever. He's just incredible.
Joe's a hard worker. The reason Joe and I get along so well is in some ways we're very, very similar. We are no nonsense, very kind of straight laced guys who care mostly about doing as good as we can in whatever we do. We just want to be good. We're serious about it too. And I think that's why we've worked well together and why we get along. And we love the same shit. I mean, we grew up, we're a similar age. We like the same stuff. We have a very similar background.
Yeah.
Yes, Joe's very smart. And let's not, during this pandemic, another thing that I don't think people realize necessarily is he's raised $500,000 during this pandemic that has gone directly to musicians. I've seen it because many of my friends, I put them in touch so that they were recipients of some of this money, to help musicians with gas cards and food bills and, whatever, all of literally $500,000 through Keeping the Blues Alive Foundation straight into musicians' hands during this pandemic. Joe is a good guy who takes unnecessary flack for certain things because that's what happens when you get popular. But he's a great person. He's a great musician. I'm proud to call him a brother and a friend. And I'm glad we got a lot of stuff going on in the future, hopefully for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only is he a guitar hero, the modern day guitar hero, he's just, he's a guy to really look up to. He really wants to do better for everybody. And it's just his heart is as big as his guitar playing, and I don't even know him, but his heart, I can see how his heart is as big or bigger than his guitar playing. He's just an incredible dude.
He's a really good dude, and he works hard. He wants to be good. He puts in the time, and to me, that's been the biggest determining factor for me on the level of respect I have for people. That's always number one for me. Can I see the hours? Do you put in the time? You know, how much do you care? And he cares a lot. You know, and that's what I care about. I want to know you care. I want to feel it. I want to see it.
Yeah, no question. I mean, yeah, one of the best players on the planet. Certainly one of my favorite players, and such kind words from Dave and Josh about Joe. Here's what Joe had to say. He said, "Josh is one of my favorite musicians on the planet. His musical depth and guitar playing transcend the boundaries of the blues genre into a genre of his own. And I'm proud to always share a stage with him, and even prouder to call him my friend."
Well, it's very nice of him to say that.
Yeah. Kind words.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we're really, we work together, we're contemporaries, but more, we're just friends. I mean, literally, he was just calling me in the middle of this conversation, not right now, but about 20 minutes ago, because we have a record that we start next week. So it's like, I know I'm going to have to call him back when we finish this conversation, because we're planning studio days and all this stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's my brother.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I'm just glad that there's going to be music coming out between the two of you, and I look forward to it.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Definitely. All right. So,
and you know what? It's like that. It's
Dave,
go ahead.
No, go ahead,
Sorry.
Dave.
I was going to say, just to finish it out, forgive me for saying your clique, but all of the guitar players and musicians that you have become friends with, and that you're friendly with, and that you play with, Kirk Fletcher, Joe Bonamassa, all these guys, and I know Tommy Emmanuel is before you guys, but I just, I think everyone has watched that video clip of you, Joe, and Tommy from the recent the Blues Cruise thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's like some of the best playing between three people I've ever seen in my life. But Kirk Fletcher is another one. He's just, every time I watch him play, I got to stop doing what I'm doing. Like I'll sit there and I'm like, it's not even, I can't even learn from it. It's like just entertainment. And you can learn from it. The thing is, he plays in such a way that you do understand everything and you do learn, but it's just such entertainment, and he does it with a smile and humble. Everything is so everything is humble, smile, and it's like it's water running. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, Kirk, so Kirk is, my best friend. I mean, Kirk is all heart. I mean, he's just a special individual and player. So you hear that in his playing; it comes across. Yeah. The smile, the heart, the playing. You feel it. Again, Kirk's a guy. The second I saw him play, I knew, oh, that guy means it. You know what I mean? I hear it. He's put in the time. He means it. He loves it. And again, with him, it was the same. It's, it felt like I'd known that guy my whole life. We have the same upbringing almost, even though very different. He's, a son of a preacher from Compton. I'm a Jew from Florida, but we both listened to the same music, started playing when we were so young. We loved the same things. We both treated it with the same amount of passion and respect. So when we met, it was like, this is my brother. This is guys just like me, and it's been that way since the moment I met him.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing that stuff.
So, Josh, you have a studio. It's called Flat 5 Studios. You also run a YouTube channel, Josh Smith Live from Flat 5. You've had some great guests on. One of my favorites, Scott Henderson, was on recently, and Schofield, Grissom. Tell us about your channel and the goals that you have for your channel?
Yeah, well, the YouTube, is new. So I've had the channel for years, and like most musicians who are busy and working, I neglected it. I didn't put any effort into it. I barely posted any videos. To me, that was whatever. People go on YouTube to see me play. There's a million videos of me playing gigs that aren't mine, so whatever. I'm on YouTube. And when the pandemic, started, I had more free time on my hands for the first time in years. And I, quite honestly, I'll just be 100% honest. I had a 2-hour plus phone call with Rick Beato where he laid it down for me. And he said, dude, take this time in which you have it and start building it. You won't regret it. Like it will, and he's right. He was right. I've quite enjoyed building it. And so much so where, okay, it's Thursday, right? Or Wednesday. I haven't posted a video this week. I feel guilty because this is the first week where I haven't posted anything. I've pretty much done 3 videos a week for the last 6 months, or last 5. But I was so busy this week. We had the live streams here all weekend, and then we tracked the record over Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it was like, I just didn't have time to make any videos, and I feel guilty. I feel it already, like shit, I'm slacking on the YouTube, but it's been really enjoyable. Number one, I know I'm reaching a bunch of new people that I'd never reached before, which is cool. I like I'm trying to keep it very off the cuff. So even though I put a lot of time into each video and try to make it as good and look as good as it can, the premises of each are not driven by what people are asking me for or what I think will get the most views. I'm just trying to make videos that are interesting to me and what I feel like talking about that day. And hopefully people will watch them. And it's been really cool. And the other interesting thing is, I debated for the last few years whether to start a Patreon or to do these things. And right at the time I started doing the YouTube channel, I got an email from YouTube saying they were introducing their memberships thing. And it's still kind of in beta. So it doesn't work 100% perfectly, and most people can't even do it yet. But I figured, well, I'll try it out. And that's great. I've got, a few hundred members. And, they're like, now there's a whole community. They're the rulers. And we have a private Discord forum for the top tier rulers, and we're discussing things in there. I post a challenge that only they see most weeks, and then they post the videos in Discord, and we talk about them. They talk to each other. I don't have to be in there every minute. They don't complain if I skip days and I'm not in there because they're talking to each other. It's been really awesome. Like
That's
they're
great.
very supportive of everything I do, and it feels like I'm building a new community, even more of fans and people who maybe didn't know me before.
Right. Well, what I
great.
really like about
you've spoken to so many great players, musicians.
Yeah.
Who's still on the wish list for you to have a conversation with?
Well, just being honest, I've taped over 40 of these things already because I went crazy at the beginning of when I started getting into it, and I just called every friend I had because I had the time. So I was like, hey, you want to do an interview? And of course, everybody says yes. So I would do 4 a day, you know what I mean? And just I'm stockpiling them because I know life will return to somewhat normalcy, and I won't have the amount of time and effort to be able to give into the channel. So I wanted to have these videos I can post 1 a week for months now on end. I've got tons of them. As far as who's on the list, I have a lot of still big guys to be released, who were people that, I wanted to get. I'm hoping Derek will do it. He hasn't done it yet. He said he would. He never does that kind of stuff. So we'll see. It'd be nice to get Derek because, again, he never does that kind of stuff. I'd like to talk to Larry Carlton, although saw Jeff talk to him, motherfucker. But
that I got to tell you, it's very tough, especially when you have contemporaries that do the same thing as you. Like we have on this smaller level, we have contemporaries that get guests as well. So it's like, man, I can't get it. He was just on blah blah blah's channel. I'm gonna ask him the same questions.
But I'd like to talk to Larry. I'd like to talk to Robin Ford. I want to branch out from more, not only guitar players. At this point, though, everybody I've called are people I actually know. And I'm lucky. I know a lot of guys, really great ones, legendary ones, and they say yes. So eventually it will end up being guys I don't know. I'll have to start reaching out to people, and that's awkward for me. We'll see when it reaches that point. The one that I want selfishly to convince the most is my friend Mike Landau, because he never does any of this stuff. And if he did it, people would lose their fucking minds if he did it. Oh.
Here's one.
It's like trying to get John Sykes to do something. Yeah. It's like trying to get John Sykes to do something.
Yeah, I'd lose my mind over that one too. But Landau would be absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Just know that I'm trying.
Yeah, it's prevalent. We see it. And one thing I got to tell you that I absolutely love about your live streams when you do them, you get to everybody's questions, and I know that for a fact because you've gotten to my questions, and you really give everyone that doesn't get a chance to talk to you that are fans of yours. You give them the time of day, and that means the world. It means the world to me. Just having you here is one thing, but you don't know me, and you don't know me when you're reading my question and you get into it. It's amazing. Yeah. It's just really nice. It's nice to see that in a celebrity.
Well, celebrity. That's I'm not a celebrity, but I consider I'm grateful that anybody cares about anything I have to say, or especially that anybody is interested in my music or my playing. That's an amazing thing to me. That I can release it. If I released a new song right now, which I could, I guess. I go on Discord and release a new song. You get it up on iTunes and Spotify. I mean, not Discord, DistroKid or whatever. Thousands of people would buy it, immediately. Yeah. That's mind-blowing to me. The people in Australia and New Zealand and Scotland and Ireland and, Denmark and Norway and Russia will buy this thing immediately the second I put it out. That blows my mind. I'm so grateful for that. So, yeah, I feel like in some ways I owe it to people. And, in fact, my wife, gives me a hard time about it sometimes because maybe I'm too accommodating sometimes to the amount of questions that if you saw the amount of personal messages I get between all the platforms combined and emails through my website, where it's like, hey, can you tell me again what pick you use or what strings you use? Or sometimes people ask me like, hey, I'm building a rig to record in my studio. What do you think of this focus? Things I don't know anything about. I've never tried that piece of gear, but I always feel obliged to answer back, and
there's something to be said.
More and more.
There's something to be said about being approachable. I know. I know it could be a pain in the ass to the extent that you have to do it. But there's something that being approachable to the normal Joe, the regular Joe, it puts you up here. To me, personally, it just puts you up there because it's like, man, he doesn't know me and he gives me the time of day. That guy deserves all the props out of me.
Well,
and I want to support that guy. I want to support that guy because not only does he bring me pleasure with his music, but he gives me the time of day as an individual. And that's something super special.
Well, thank you. I mean, I remember vividly as a kid the guys who took the time to answer my question when I met them for that brief second or gave me the time of day versus the ones who did not. And I always, and then the biggest for me was I was very lucky to get to spend some time with B.B. King. Over the course of a couple of years, I did 2 runs with him up and down Florida. So, for a week plus of time, I was around him every day, opening the shows. And just seeing, at this point, a 70-plus-year-old man's interaction with everyone every day, the handshaking, the kindness, the willingness to wait till the very last person in line got that autograph and got his hands shook, and even sometimes when he wasn't feeling well because he was diabetic and sometimes he'd have low blood sugar and, he didn't care. It was like, that made a big impression on me. That's the way you're supposed to be. And when I would find guys who weren't that way, that also made a big impression on me. Like, I'm not going to be that guy. I will not be that guy,
Mm-hmm. Well, in some ways, you remind me a lot of B.B. King in that way. And God bless you for it, man.
If I can remind anybody BB King in any way, I'm cool with that. That's great.
Well, you know, it's just
That's
it
cool.
means the world to me personally. So I appreciate
Thank you.
So Josh, as we're wrapping things up, how is 2021 shaping up for you? I mean, I know that there's still a lot of uncertainty in the world, but can you give us can you tell us how things are unfolding so far?
You know, I'm not really sure what's going to happen this year. I've got record projects on the schedule that are loose, you know, because I don't know how much people are going to want to travel from out of town to come here, or how much traveling I'm still going to want to do from out of town until I get the vaccine. You know, I don't know if I'll be on the road at all this year. I'm pretty negative about that chance, honestly. Like, I really feel like, you know, it's probably not, at least maybe till the second half of the year, a possibility, but who knows? So I'm playing it by ear. You know, I'm going to put as much effort as I can into the YouTube. I'm going to produce what I can. So, yeah, Joe and I have a record that we start in about 8 days here in LA. So I don't have to travel or anything. So that'll be, you know, I'll be working on that for the next few weeks. After we get into that, we'll finish that. You know, I've had a lot going on. You know, we produced Eric Gale's record. We just finished that, you know, so like last week we were mixing and mastering that, you know, finishing up that. There's, you know, I'm always working on some project, you know, even when we're done with the tracking, and we're into mixing, then we're into mastering, you know, that's pre-production for the next thing, you know, so I'm busy, but yeah, I miss the thing that makes me the most, which is playing the gigs, the improvising. That's where I want to be. That's my heart, you know. So I miss that, but I don't know when it's going to come back, and we're all in the same boat in that. So I'm trying not to complain about it. I also have, you know, new music of my own, in which I'm very not sure how to proceed on releasing, based on the status of the world. I can't tour behind it, and actually, the project that I want to release next is already a very drastically different project than anything I've ever done. So it needs to be treated specially and promoted in a new way anyways. So I'm ambivalent about how to release it. I want to get it right, because actually I think it's the best thing I've ever done. Certainly the most proud of anything I've ever done. And the most amount of work I've put into anything I've ever done. So I'm excited to get it out there, but I don't want to fuck it up. So I want to figure out the right way to release it and promote it, because it is so different. So yeah, I'm on the fence about how to release this new music, how to whatever, continue, you know, moving forward, how to make a living. You know, it's not super easy. I'm not about to be out on the street or anything, but I mean, I'm having to kick butt, you know, in so many different avenues to make ends meet at the moment. So little things like that, you know. And then I've got some new products for this year that'll come out, which should help a little bit too, as long as people like them. The first one will be the signature guitar. You know, of course, I got a signature guitar coming out. I can't say who it's with, but literally it's 10 days away. January 17th, it will all be revealed to the world.
Can't wait to see it. I can't wait to own one.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's I can't wait to own one.
So I've got that. I've got other pedals that I've been helping to design, in addition to the ones I already have out there on the market. I've got new True Fire courses coming. I've been writing a book, my first like kind of half instructional, half transcription book that I'm going to try to get out soon. All sorts of stuff like that.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about this guitar in 10 days. So that'll be exciting.
10 days away.
Yeah. Sounds good. So as we say goodbye to everyone, Josh, can you stick around with us when we say goodbye just for a couple minutes, and we'll say goodbye to you off camera?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
All right, so we're back, everyone, in 2021. We're gonna have a great year this year. Stay tuned. Next Thursday, we'll have another great show. We'll mention who we have come on in the middle of the week. Stay tuned to that. Thank you to my beautiful wife, Desiree Dornan, and Ben Coombs for being the moderator tonight.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Terry.
Yes, thank you, Terry, as well. Ty, always amazing to have you with me. You're the best partner I've ever had in my life, and
Dave,
it's just really awesome. It's
you're
awesome.
great, man.
Josh, thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
You're welcome, guys.
absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for the questions and for watching. I appreciate you asking.
We look forward to watch you in your future endeavors, and I'm excited about everything that's coming up for you. So.
And thank you for the music, Josh. The music.
You got it,
Thank
guys.
so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, guys.
All right, Josh. So stay tuned. Stick with us for just a minute, and we're going to say goodbye with this.